Hello everyone and welcome to Helix Cloud Games. My name is Richie and this is CloudQuest, a cloud gaming show where I take a deep dive into one particular topic. And this week we're talking about the fallout of Google Stadia and where Stadia players are heading to next. And joining me in this quest is none other than Mr. Chris.
I need some direction, Richie. Help me out.
I'll help you out indeed, that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into it, make sure if you haven't already subscribed to the channel and hit that bell icon for notifications when all of our great shows drop, such as the Sounds of Stadia podcast, where every single Monday we break down the Stadia news on YouTube and podcast services. We will be continuing that show for the foreseeable future. However, as we announced during our celebration live stream, it's going to come to an end at some point. It's on live support, but we're going to keep it going as long as it makes sense for us to do it. So stay tuned for announcements coming from the channel probably over the next few weeks. We also have a PlayStation podcast where we break down all the PlayStation news happening in the cloud on YouTube and podcast services, and our weekly live streams happen every single Thursday. So Chris, Stadia's dead. What you getting next?
Oh, wow, Richie. Could you jump in my grave any quicker? So we should probably address last week's episode of CloudQuest where we discussed cloud gaming in review for this year. Obviously pre-recorded. Had a little chuckle at our expense. However, the one thing that did hold up, and a lot of people in the comments and in our Discord server said, was basically everything we praised Stadia for, it still holds true. Just because the thing's being shuttered doesn't mean that all of the tick box points that were like, well, it's better than Luna because of these reasons, it's better than xCloud because of these reasons. They still hold true. It's just the company that invested in it, didn't believe in it like we did. That's the rally.
Invested. Comments.
Yeah, definitely. But so here we are, 1 week detached from the news. And I guess the big question everyone's having right now, and everyone's had for the last week or so, has been, where do we go next for our gaming? Because some people didn't have consoles, some people don't have allegiances to other platforms, and Stadia was pretty much the be-all, end-all of gaming for now. Some people got back into gaming because of Stadia, and now they feel like they're at a bit of a loss, and I get it. I think it's a weird sensation to have a... Like, let's think about it. In our entire lives, has there been a technology that you've used frequently that has suddenly gone?
Not really. You could argue things like MP3 players came and go, but it feels like they went through a natural lifespan and just got merged into mobile phones. Yeah. And then like things like Spotify and stuff took over. So that feels like a natural change over time, like as the industry changed. Mm-hmm. Where Stadia just seems to be, here's this thing that's potentially going to revolutionize the industry that we were hoping that it would. And in some ways it arguably has. And then it's gone.
I guess you can still get and use MP3s though. Like if I wanted to download a song and listen to it, I could still do that. Whereas with Stadia, the rug has literally been pulled out from under them, and it's like, oh, so I've got 5 controllers. I'm going to have a cash payout, so I'm going to have some money at least. And I think the big difference with this one is everyone's got that Stadia stimulus check incoming, and it's almost like, right, do I reinvest in the games industry? Where do I want to spend my gaming time next? Now, I know you see on social media, so many people are like, right, well, where do I put my money now? Stadia's gone. What's the next best thing that suits my needs case?
Actually, my MP3 player analogy is actually it's quite good actually, because I've just checked. Apple discontinued the iPod in 2022 in May. So like, really, you don't have people walking around with iPods anymore because that's dead.
You don't need it.
But that's kind of, it feels like that was a natural progression of that industry rather than someone just bowing out.
Did you ever have an iPod?
I never had one. I had a Sony Walkman.
Oh, you were down the retro kids.
Well, I never liked the wheel on the iPod. I suppose it was decent, but I always felt like in a way it was reinventing the wheel unnecessarily. I kind of like the arrow buttons. They worked well for me, yeah.
Good for a little brick breaker game though, that wheel. I used to play that in college on my iPod Nano.
Yeah.
Loved it.
But I mean, briefly on like last week's episode, we actually recorded that about 2 weeks before it came out because we're on the lead up to our anniversary stream. So we figured we'll get that episode in early So then it's one less thing for us to worry about, and as we're focusing on our time and effort on bringing you that a 12+ hour stream. And then literally like a day and a half before we're about to go live, Google dropped the bombshell news, and you were the other side of the country. So even there was like a case of, I was worried about that episode. Like I actually sat back and re-listened. It was like, I think it's going to be good, because is this just now completely a stupid episode or not?
Yeah, it's kind
and
of
we
like
don't have, but we didn't have a chance to like re-record or anything. So I was like, if we're just gonna have to put it out and just.
Yeah, it's in kind of like its own little time capsule, isn't it? Where it's a time and a place when everything was right with the world, everyone was invested, even Google, it would appear. And how little did we know, Richie, in hindsight, how little did we know. But yeah, I guess what's next for all of us, you and me included. We've had some time to think about it. We've chatted off camera about some degree, but I guess we're here today to break down, quite a lot. Our Discord, as again, if you haven't joined our Discord, links in the description below. We've now got individual threads for all of these platforms, we should point out. So if you were into Stadia gaming, you now think, well, actually, I'm going to go back to my Nintendo Switch. There's still a place for you in our Discord. Like, we're all gamers, regardless of the platform. Our company mantra is play wherever makes you the happiest. So you're all welcome. If anything, it's actually stimulated more conversation, because now people are kind of honing in on what their preference is. But they've got a place to talk about it without meandering in the full general chat.
Considering our company mantra, this is one of them things that I was like, why didn't we think of this earlier? And credit to Sarge for requesting it. I was like, that's a good idea. So like, let's get that set up now.
We're always open to ideas. I know loads of people have reached out regarding our channel. Realistically, it's been a bit disappointing. We've seen a drop off in subscribers as soon as the Stadia news dropped, which is like, it's going to happen. I get it.
We talked behind the scenes and that as well. I was anticipating it. Like it's going to happen. But some people who are listening to us just for Stadia news, and then they're no longer interested in Stadia, so they're gone. Like exactly, it happens. Yeah. We hope we'll win you back with our announcements coming forward.
With the algorithm, the algorithm will drag them back in, Richie.
But
let's talk about what our options are then. Really, we talk about games all the time, but let's actually drill into it.
Yeah, we'll run through some of the big players still in cloud gaming, not to the same level as we did last week.
No.
But it feels like for what we want to do for this episode, touching on them is necessary. I think we start with PlayStation, because everyone knows we're PlayStation fans. We both have PS5s, we both have PS4s. We have a PlayStation podcast talking to the PS every Tuesday. Go watch it. Go listen to it. Great podcast. Yeah. So, Chris, PlayStation.
I mean, if anyone who's listened to any of our content before will know we're PlayStation originally through and through. Like, I literally have behind me the sacred symbols, a PlayStation lava lamp, and my original PS1 stood up with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro statuettes. So, yeah, I absolutely adore PlayStation. I'm always going to be a PlayStation fan. I don't think Sony could possibly do anything other than messing up all of their IP somehow and putting out below par games that would actually lose me to the cause. Because
if they shut down PlayStation Studios.
I mean, that's one thing, which I very much doubt they're going to follow in Stadia's footsteps.
No, they're not doing that.
I guess in terms, though, rather than just talk about our own interest, it's let's keep it more Stadia specific. And realistically, if you are a Stadia fan right now and you don't own a PS5, you maybe didn't have a PS4, their cloud offering at the moment, as we know, is through their premium subscription. You pay top dollar. You get all of your free PlayStation Plus games to claim, and then you get some interstitial ones sprinkled throughout the month, and you get a library of X amount of games across multiple generations. Not so much classic generations. If you're looking for those PS3 and PS2 games, it's very light on the front right now.
We expect that will grow in time, though.
I mean, if they're going to keep retaining subscribers in a year's time when everyone comes to renew, they're going to want to book their IDs up, because honestly, the offering's been quite subpar since the launch of the new...
Yeah, the skeptic in me thinks that maybe have stuff ready to go that they're holding back so they can kind of drip feed this stuff. So their blog posts, instead of going, here's 1,000 old games in one go, now we've got nothing to talk about. Here's a good number of games, and we're going to slowly add to the library. Yeah. I think that's what they'll probably be doing.
Exactly, and there is some news we're going to cover on this week's Talking the PS, so if you are a Helix Hero listening to this on the Sunday when you get early access, it's up on Tuesday on free feeds. You've probably got it now, actually, if you're a Helix Hero, and we talk about upcoming PC incorporation, the PSN network being moved across, and I think Sony definitely have some moves in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that came out this week, there's an IGN article, actually, about Stadia, which explains that Sony partnered with Microsoft to combat Google's cloud stream. So Sony and Microsoft made a partnership explicitly to counteract Google's streaming technology using the Azure network. So
they sat down, went through who are the third-party developers. You have that one, I'll have that one, you have that one, I'll have that one. Just taking turns. So if there's no third-party developers, there's no Google Stadia.
Yeah, and we know in the fallout of Stadia, that's one of the reasons that Google started to wind in a little bit their investment and their time, purely because if you weren't a big player and you didn't own the market share, we've seen with Activision Blizzard, we've seen with Bethesda, we've seen with Bungie, if there's no one else to work with, then you're pretty much screwed over. And we actually highlight this concern way back on like one of the SideQuest episodes. I think it was probably actually just after Bethesda was bought. It might have even been a post-show episode. It was that long ago, about how concerning Bethesda being plucked off the table would be to Stadia, and then it went on to be Activision Blizzard and Bungie, and it just kind of had a ripple effect that Google obviously they were too far behind in the race to really make any impact with or without investment. But back to PlayStation, I think if you're in it for just the games, I do think you probably genuinely need to get yourself a console, because their cloud offer at the moment is subpar.
That's kind of the conclusion I was going to work us towards. Like, I think the PlayStation ecosystem is great. PlayStation Plus is good. The cloud gaming is fine. They need to do a lot more in terms of advertising what comes to the cloud. Microsoft have an interesting way of doing that, which we'll talk about in a bit. But you need the box. You need the box and the TV to get in that ecosystem. It's just, otherwise it's going to be a really subpar experience. Like, there's little things that I find annoying. Like, you can use remote play. You can on your phone to access your PlayStations. However, it doesn't work with third-party controllers. You'd have to get a third-party app in order to get something like a Razer Kishi working on remote play, which is just annoying.
Yeah, and you can play cloud games through your phone.
Yeah.
It's just this little...
I think that's a yet. We've talked on Talking the PS before about how that seems to be a yet. Like, the PC client stuff seems to be also, this is kind of shoddy for now. Mm-hmm. I'm optimistic where it may go, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to put into practice. And we presumed, rightly or wrongly, that Stadia would kind of push PlayStation and Xbox to elevate that more.
PlayStation Now had nails in the coffin before Stadia was launched, and then suddenly Microsoft, Sony are pulling the nails out, especially after the announcement of xCloud and then Amazon Luna. They pivoted. It's clear that they were trying to phase out PlayStation Now, and then like, okay, we have to get this going again, and now they've incorporated the PlayStation Plus. I think they're reluctantly in cloud gaming.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's move on from PlayStation. Let's talk about Amazon Luna next. We would like to get our hands on Amazon Luna, but again, as we said many times, it's not out in the UK. If anyone from Luna is listening and you have an announcement, feel free to message us. We'd happy work with you guys.
Yeah, that was always our intention from the beginning when we got in on Stadia and we started talking about the channel, the direction and everything, and we started embracing more cloud gaming. We spoke about GeForce Now quite often on the show. There was Boosteroid, Atomic, Black Note. There's all them things that throughout the months we've kind of covered and discussed it by association with Stadia.
Yeah, I plan to cover them in a bit more detail in upcoming CloudQuest, just the other players. It's an idea I've had for a while, but I haven't got round to doing the research needed for them yet.
Yeah. But then in a world where over in the United States they launch Amazon Luna, and all we can do at the moment, Richie, is look in like children through a shop window. We just have to look in and think like, it looks good. It's familiar to what I'm used to, but yeah, we haven't in the UK and in Europe, well, too far outside the United States, even in Canada, they don't have access to it yet. You've got to imagine it's imminent. The anniversary of their public rollout is, I think, this month, October. So it's been a year in the States now, I believe, which seems crazy to say out loud, but there will be a point when Amazon want to flick that switch and go wider scale. And we know they stripped, obviously, when they went wide in the United States, they got rid of the beta tag as well. So this is no longer in beta.
Yeah, we expected when it came out of early access, we expected that would be the global launch, but then it never happened.
Absolutely. And in terms of Stadia fans, I guess this seems to me the next nearest thing, because you buy a controller, You can get a Fire Stick, so you've got your control and your Chromecast being mirrored in Amazon products. You've got your Prime Gaming, which is akin to your Pro subscription in a way. You're paying for a subscription elsewhere, and the perks you get are a couple of games every month. But then the big different thing for us has always been the business model of you cannot buy games on Amazon Luna a la carte. You have to sign up to one of their channels, whether that's family, retro, whatever. If
you're a Stadia player who just had Stadia Pro and you paid your monthly subs and they're the games you played and you're completely content with that, I think Amazon Luna is going to be right up your alley. Because in that case, it will be literally just a one-for-one swap.
Yeah, especially if you were mostly Ubisoft Plus, because that's also available. So if you were just a Ubi kind of guy and you just played in the cloud using Ubisoft games, it's the same thing. You pay the same fee, you just stream it via Luna instead of Stadia. So you're not, that's probably the best transition. If you're out there and that's your niche gaming style, that's as simple as just moving across. Obviously, if you're in the United States.
As I mentioned last week, anecdotally from various sources who we've talked to behind the scenes, or even just sometimes publicly, Luna performs as well as Stadia.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got our hands on it, so we can't verify this, but we've only really heard good things about the performance of Luna.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of our content creator friends.
I expect the stream performance to be better than PlayStation, potentially better than Xbox. Put it that way.
Yeah, I would anticipate that as well, but. We can't quite say until we get our hands on it, but I'm definitely excited to check it out. It's going to feel, again, having that new controller arrive. I've seen photos and videos of it for 2+ years now. Actually getting my hands on it, I'm looking forward to it. And I am an Amazon Prime subscriber, so technically I'll get those games to test out, regardless of if I want to pay for any channels or not.
By the time this goes out to non-members, I probably won't be a Prime subscriber anymore, because Rings of Power's ending. So I don't need it anymore.
I have it for the delivery. It's too close to Christmas to get rid of Prime.
I'll probably get it when I do my Christmas shopping for like a week. Because I do. I always cancel it, and then they'll go, "Oh, do you want to join for like a week? It'll cost you £1 for a week." Yeah. I was like, okay.
And funnily enough, our association with Amazon Luna, it's kind of a sad irony. If you remember, Richie, this time we did our 3rd year anniversary stream was literally 2 days after the closure announcement of Google Stadia. If you remember our 1st year anniversary stream, Amazon Luna was announced going into that weekend. So we started our first ever live 1 year celebration by talking about Amazon Luna being announced.
I forgot about that.
So it's like this weird irony of we launched our 1st year celebration with Amazon Luna. We did our 3rd year celebration with the closure of Stadia. It's almost like we're like just so connected and tied to these two behemoths in the cloud world. And again, I'm more than anything, I'm just looking forward to talking about it, because it feels like it's existed for so long and it's just out of arm's reach. It's just over there. I've tempted with the idea of getting one of our friends stateside to send us a Luna controller just to do a comparison. But I'm being patient. We can wait. And I'm sure it'll be great. Because again, we totally believed in Stadia's tech. That was the thing. It was never the tech that was the problem. So if Amazon can match that and maybe show a bit more willingness and investment than Google did, then again, we've said it's a slow burn, this cloud game and malarkey, and it's very, very young in its days. But if you're a Stadia player and you're in the US right now, I think Luna's probably your best transitional thing in terms of like for like. If
you're happy with the business model, I think that's the biggest thing there. If you want to buy your games a la carte, Luna's not for you. If you're happy with just sub-models, then I think Luna's going to be great.
And when I say like for like, I also mean the game library, because Luna's library, it's okay. Like Stadia's was okay. It's missing some things.
Yes, and I think once it goes worldwide, then Luna's avoided that kind of criticism a bit, because it is, I think, it's a sub-only model in some ways.
Yeah.
So where Stadia wasn't, and also the way Stadia built itself. Anyway, but let's move on to GeForce Now.
Where do you want to start with GeForce Now?
Nothing has changed in my criticism of GeForce Now. I think it's a fantastic utility for playing games that you already own on the go, or if you have an underpowered PC, for example, and you can't afford like a new 40 series Nvidia card, which will set you back over $1,000, which is ridiculous in Nvidia. Get that in order. You're making the wrong stuff, in my opinion. Make stuff to get people into gaming, not price them out of it. But that side thing is like, there's things in their business model that I do not like. Even in the premium models, there's caps on how long your play session is. I think at the top tier it might be 8 hours. It's not insignificant, but still there. And there's always a potential for queues. And I don't mind them things on the free models, because let's be fair, the whole point of the free model is to get you in the door so you can try the service, see if it works for you. But on the premium things, I don't want to spend my time when you've got limited time sat in a queue while other people play games until it's my turn. I just don't like that when I'm paying for the service. It is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been shy about it. Again, if we're thinking about Stadia players, if you're a Stadia player like me who doesn't have a Steam library that's beyond maybe 1 or 2 titles, transitioning across and taking essentially what is your pro subscription and putting it towards maybe the priority tier at $8.99, that gets you the premium rig, ray tracing on, priority access to premium servers, 6-hour gaming sessions, and up to 1080p 60 frames per second.
6 hours I thought was 8. But,
yeah, 8's the top one, RTX 3080, so that's $17.99 a month. So that's like an extra £9. That gets you an 8-hour session, a 3080 rig, exclusive access to the 3080 servers, 4K resolution, and up to 120 frames per second. So that's your big daddy at the top. But again, if I wanted to pay £18 a month, in return for that, I'm getting no games. I have a library that's maybe 2 or 3 titles strong in Steam. I might own a few things through Epic. But in my needs case, I'll be honest, I don't want to pay 18 quid for access to a top-end computer when I'm not really... I don't have anything to play on it. I would have to then go out and spend £40 on this game, £50 on that game, £20 here, £20 there, and then I'm upwards of... I'm investing again in Steam and stuff, so it's not a lost cause. But you know what I mean? I feel like I'm having to start completely from scratch. Whereas if you're a Stadia player out there and you've got an extensive library of 100 games, and no doubt there are probably a lot of games that are in that list better than what was available on Stadia, then yeah, pivot to a priority tier, play them in the cloud.
There's actually a weird pro in the GeForce Now thing, where of being PC gaming, where there's a lot of developers coming out at the moment, which we'll talk more about in Sounds of Stadia, who are trying to find ways to help Stadia players move their saves onto PC versions. Either if they're going to go, you know what, we're going to transfer you over, we're just going to give you a code so you can redeem it on Steam, or we're just going to, if you choose to use your refund to rebuy the game on Steam, we'll help you move your saves. That's where GeForce Now could be beneficial to a former Stadia players. Like, well, I've got all these games, I've got all this progress. If I just take my refund, buy the games on Steam, pay the sub for GeForce Now, I can just transfer my progress over in a lot of games. Absolutely. So there is that benefit, but as you mentioned, for £18 a month, I think for that sort of money, there's a better solution.
There's definitely a cheaper solution that offers more value, and I think we're probably going to get into it next, to be honest.
Yes. There's a reason we've left this one for last, to be honest. We're talking about Xbox next.
Xbox, never heard of them.
Yep. Tiny company, made by a tiny company called Microsoft. You might, yeah.
So with Xbox, so this is the reason I think this is the most talked about one. The reason we've left it to last is, on all fronts, from most people, it seems like the obvious choice. They have a library of games that Stadia could never compete with. They have a subscription model that Stadia never competed with in terms of value, what you get in return.
Yeah, Game Pass is ridiculous.
They have heritage, which Stadia and Google could never compete with. And in fact, everyone we've covered so far, Luna can't compete with that either, GFN. The only ones who really can are PlayStation, and we said how bad their cloud offering is already.
GFN's,
so if you're
GFN's a weird one because NVIDIA have been involved in the gaming industry in a different way for basically ever.
But not necessarily the same way Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo revered. They're not spoke about in that kind of conversation at all. Like, yes, they make the tech, they make wonderful technology, and they do it good, but they're not gaming as your casual gamer would expect to talk about it. And yeah, I think PlayStation's cloud offering, we've mentioned that one. And then when you look over to Xbox, you think, can I play on my phone? Yes.
Do I have play with a Kishi on my phone? Yes.
Do I have access to hundreds of titles? Yes. What about exclusives that I can't play anywhere else? 100% yes. We've just bought Bethesda. We're acquiring Activision Blizzard. We already have a slew of studios and well-known IP. If you want to play Gears of War, Forza, Halo, at the moment Grounded, Sea of Thieves, all these titles you've heard about, yes. Does it incorporate EA Play to some degree? Yes. Will it have Ubisoft Plus? Coming soon. Does it have money and investment? They just spent $78 billion more than Google ever paid towards probably anything for Stadia. R&D investment probably didn't even come close to that amount of money they're willing to drop on just acquiring some studios and IP. If you want to talk about commitment, library, doing what's right by the consumer, I honestly don't think you can look beyond Xbox and Game Pass right now. We've been slowly bubbling away across the Sounds of Stadia podcast for months now, praising them. And again, I always want to caveat, me and you, never own an Xbox, not Xbox fans. So we're coming from it from an outsider's perspective. We keep peeking over the fence, we keep looking through that shop window.
Our heads have been turned by them.
That looks good. Why am I spending money here when I could get more over there? And that's, as a consumer, and especially when the world's so damn expensive right now for anything and everything, I need to start prioritizing where I spend my money.
A lot of praise from Xbox there. There's a few negatives to mention.
Green.
One, yeah, it's green. Oh yeah, we hate green on this show.
Yeah, this show of all things.
One, it's green. I've lost my train of thought now.
It's green.
It's green. Yeah, it's still green. It's probably always going to be green. Let's be fair. And although I think AMD used to be green and they're red now, so it could happen.
Luke Skywalker's lightsaber.
It's at the moment sub only for you have to have Game Pass, which if you don't like your sub models and you want to buy games a la carte, that could be a problem. However, Microsoft have announced already that they are looking to bring games so you can buy them a la carte to xCloud.
In 3 years, they're going to have the Stadia model. After Stadia's passed away in January, they'll come out and say, you can buy your games a la carte. So then, ironically, they started with the Game Pass and submodel, and then they're going to end up with the submodel, plus you can just buy your games if you want them anyway.
But I think the reason Microsoft, get a pass on this is because you can still also just buy the box to go on your TV and buy games in your local retail. They have that as well. So it's like, the xCloud is kind of in that position where it's kind of like they seem to be fully committed to it being the future, but it's now just part of their present, not the whole thing.
Yeah, and that was always the benefit they had, is it was the cloud element was supplementary to their core offering.
Yeah.
So they weren't going to annoy all of their fan base by going, Series X, it's in the cloud. You don't need a console. And then all of their entire fan base go, but I've bought an Xbox every 8 years for forever. They haven't done that. They've just launched the products as normal. Great offerings, games, etc., etc. And then now this is just, and if you want to play on your phone, go do it. If you want to play on a tablet, go do it. And we should stress as well, the tech isn't as good. Stadia was first in class, worked amazing. We can compare to Luna.
That was the next criticism that from people we know we've talked to who, for example, Rob, who has used xCloud quite a bit. It's not quite as good as Stadia in terms of the tech. Mm-hmm. But Microsoft have shown that they're improving this tech as well. So this is the thing. Every criticism I have of Xbox and xCloud, Microsoft have already addressed in public in some ways that they're working on. That's why this is the way I'm leaning to go. As I'm still going to have a PlayStation. That's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. But as basically my Stadia replacement in my gaming library, I'm leaning towards Xbox in a very hard way. I mean, I've been saying for a while on Sounds of Stadia. My problem with Xbox in the past was their first party game library, and when I've only got enough money for one box under the TV, third party between Sony and Microsoft were basically equivalent. Then Sony have their first party offering, Microsoft I personally felt wasn't as good for me. So I've always went Sony. Microsoft, we've already talked about the studios have been buying. And, with xCloud, I don't necessarily need the box. So that gets away the calculus of dropping £500 on the box to stick under my TV.
Absolutely. And if they go in, like you said, the best thing we've seen is they communicate. They have their weekly blogs, Xbox Wire. Phil Spencer comes out and actively talks about. Hell, he was talking about Google Stadia and Amazon being their competition years ago. About we don't need to worry about Sony and Nintendo. What we need to worry about is these big tech companies, Google, Apple, Microsoft, getting into the cloud gaming world. He's seen off Google now. Well done, Phil. You've done your job on one front. Amazon, maybe in the target line next. And all you need to do is just stay ahead of them, because you've got that legacy, you've got that library, that when people are going, oh, I've got this, I've got that, but I'm looking elsewhere, if you can turn people's heads, and I think Game Pass, xCloud, formerly known as xCloud, and Xbox's legacy, I think, does enough great work to make gamers trust them enough to put their hard-earned cash into it, knowing that it's not going anywhere. I mean, just look at with the backwards compatibility. You bought games on 360 back in the day. You can play them on your Series X or S now. Or, if you are a Stadia player out there, and you sign up to Game Pass, you can get it for like, what, $1, £1 now for a month? And then there's promos all over, depending on which purchasing decision you want to make. And I think the best part of the transition across for me is you immediately get a library of like 100 plus titles. Quality titles as well.
I've been looking through the library, and like, because I've downloaded the Xbox, I've actually had the Xbox app on my phone for months.
Yeah, same.
And I've been looking through, it's like, it's a good library. But I want to end this show by asking our audience a question, because we are obviously, me and Chris, we're in talks with Tom and Rob and Jeff about what the future of our channel is going to be. It's like, where do you want us to go? Because I'd be interested to see where our audience's take is, because where are you guys going? What if you're moving from Stadia to something else? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we've discussed off camera. And we put a vote out in our YouTube members channel to get our Helix Heroes first impressions of what you want to do. And I think there's definitely a general consensus out there. And we have to replace Sounds of Stadia with something. So let us know. Yep.
But that's all we have time for this week. If you've liked the video, hit that like button and consider becoming a member for as little as 99p, where you can get very early access to this very show. If you've got an idea for a topic you want us to discuss, let us know in the comments of this video or in our Discord server. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been Richie.
I've been Green.
Quest completed.